Right, so this video is going to be a little bit more of me talking and a bit less of the general guitar playing tutorials you might have seen so far. There's a lot of issues with how I'm seeing a lot of people attempt to learn the instrument at the moment. And again, it's not something I see a lot of people talking about. It's more of a cultural shift of the expectations of people when they pick up an instrument and want to get good at it, or if they've been playing for quite a long time and they really want to improve their playing. What I am seeing, which is really prevalent now, is the lack of mentorship and the lack of people wanting mentorship within the current ecosystem. This is really dangerous, and there's a couple of things I'm going to go into here which are really important, and hopefully they will help you with your own playing. But one of the things that's happened since the dawn of time is if you wanted to get good at a skill, you went and got a mentor for it of some kind. Doesn't matter if it was carpentry or if it was musicianship or anything else. You got someone to tell you how to do the thing. The reason why that's so important, and the reason why that's been important for a very long time, is that when you start something or you've been doing it for a while casually, but you want to get better at it, you don't know what you don't know. So if you have, in a musical context, for example, timing issues or fundamental technical flaws with your playing, it will be almost impossible for you to be able to identify those as an individual acting on their own without someone else coming in and seeing what you're doing and thinking, that's wrong, you need to correct this. And I get a lot of questions sometimes as to what should I be doing and how should I be improving on my guitar playing? What's your practice routine look like? And one of my main recommendations to anyone is get a teacher who is significantly better than you are. It is that simple, and that sounds like a really sort of me shilling my own sort of services thing to say, but it's not, and because it doesn't have to be me. If there's someone with a specific amount of expertise in an area that you want, you need to go and chase that. And just to talk about something that happened to me maybe a year or so ago, I went to a masterclass with Alex Hutchings, who I'm sure a lot of you know is an absolutely monstrous guitar player. And it was a really, really good masterclass. We did it over 2 days, and I got to sit down with him in the pub afterwards. And we got to talking about a lot of things. But I asked him the question, I was like, if you had to pick one thing, what would you suggest that I work on? And he said, with absolutely no hesitation, he was just like, you need to work on your time. And that sort of rubbed me the wrong way at the time. I was like, that is not an answer I wanted to hear, because I thought that was a little bit sort of succinct. I was hoping it would be a little bit more complicated than that. But I went back and I listened to loads of recordings of myself playing, and I just kept listening to them, and I was trying to listen to where I was placing some 16th note offbeats and all this stuff. And there was just this realization where I was just like, shit, he's right. And everything I'm doing is slightly off. It's not a lot. It's not enough to be really noticeable. But at the level that I've got to now, this is really, really obvious in comparison to a player like Alex, who is just that much better and can place everything exactly where he wants it to be in the bar. And so, I spent the last year just working on time, and that's been really, really good for my playing. It's allowed me to release an EP, which, again, you can go and listen to as one of my previous videos. And my timing has improved 100-fold since I started working on that, and it's really helped me as a composer and also as an artist. A lot of people gave me a lot more compliments on my work as soon as I started working on time seriously as well. That was kind of interesting as a bit of an aside. But the point here is, I did not know that until I went to that masterclass, and he just turned around and said, yeah, your time sucked. And that's what I needed for me to be able to improve in those areas. Now, this also brings me on to my next point, which is also incredibly important, and to some extent sort of puts me out of a job in some ways, in that as much as it's really important to find a mentor, a good teacher will always go at an absolute snail's pace on whatever topics you are covering. There is no point in going to someone and being like, explain altered harmony to me, or explain this difficult set of chord changes, or etc., etc., etc. And they do it in an hour, and then you have a lesson the next week which looks at something else. the pace you need to go at to really internalize something and actually make it valuable is incremental. It's incredibly, incredibly slow. And I have students who have been learning the same thing for, I want to say, 6 months to a year. They are so much better than what they were when they came to me for lessons. But it's the discipline of being able to stick with something for an incredibly long amount of time that actually makes you a better player. And I see this with YouTube as absolute disaster for this. It's like one of the worst things that ever happened to sort of music education culture, because what I can do is I can go and watch a Troy Grady video, and Troy Grady will tell me one thing about picking, and then I can go and watch Anton Aparin say something else, and then I can go and watch Tom Quayle on legato technique, and then I can go and watch, Bernth or any of these other players and big YouTubers, etc., etc., etc. And they just they don't have coherency to what they say as a group, because some of them disagree with each other, etc., etc. I disagree with a lot of what Troy Grady says, and I think I've covered that in a lot of my videos. And so if you're bouncing back and forth between different people you're studying under, you're not actually getting anything done. You're not actually sitting down and really working out your own way of doing things and really working out how your technique needs to operate for you to be a great player. So, it's much better to just go with someone who is good at it, pay for the lessons, and then have the consistency of someone explaining their way of doing things and doing that for a substantial amount of time. Now, you can always move on. If you do that like under the same tutor for a year and a half, and then you reach a point when you think, I'm not getting as much out of these as I used to, go find a different tutor and go and do something else. As long as that player is substantially better than you, that's always going to work. And as long as that person is a good instructor in the first place, which is a skill. It's a skill I've worked on a hell of a lot, and I think I can place myself pretty confidently in that group of people. But some people will not like the way I approach the instrument. Some people will have a completely different approach. And this is sometimes what I find with my private students as well, is that I get, I say like 80-90% of them, they really sort of click with the way I visualize the neck, for example, and the way I do everything with sort of a mix of caged and interval systems and pentatonics and things that like lots of guitarists already know, so that makes it a little bit easier for them. But there is this substantial like 10% of people who come to me and I explain how I do it, and they're just like, my brain does not think like that. And they see it all in sort of note names and things like that, and they want to know all of their scales in note names and not really in patterns, and they don't use their brain to recognize all the pattern work, and they play a different way, more by ear and more intuitively, and they just look at the way I do things and they think, no, I can't do that. And that's absolutely fine, because there's a lot of players like that who are unbelievably good, but they would be better off with a mentor or an instructor that has that same approach to the instrument. So again, it's all about finding someone who you personally click with and you personally actually can get a lot out of. But this whole idea of spending a lot of time on one topic with one person telling you what to do is something that for some reason we've decided is not a good idea. It's the same with the fitness stuff as well. So, if anyone's been on sort of fitness YouTube, which I'm sure a lot of you have had the unfortunate dealing with, you go and watch one video from someone, and then some other person calls them out, and then some other person calls the person who called the original person out, etc., on being slightly inconsistent with this, when fundamentally the thing you need to do is go to the gym and lift heavy weights. And it's been complicated to this impossible degree that you can't even understand what people are going on about these days, when that basic core concept is not something that, again, sells you a lot of material. I'm not selling a lot of stuff to you. I'm selling my own services, sure. Like I've got, I teach private lessons and things like that, and people who like my YouTube videos might go and, be interested in taking private lessons if they want to get those sort of things down. But I'm not trying to sort of sell my unique spin on this concept, because what is the point in that? It's very simple. Go away, work on the topic for a long amount of time with someone telling you what you're doing wrong consistently. That's it. There is no other better way of doing things. Now, some people who are, a little bit more in the minority might find a lot of books on topics can be quite good because, if you're learning from a book, again, normally they've spent a bit more time on that book. They've spent a little bit more time explaining things in detail, going at a slower pace, because it's not a YouTube video that you have to sort of keep up with, and it has to be like, a certain 5-10 minutes long, and then otherwise everyone gets, no views and no payments out from advertisers, etc., etc. So, that element of it is not that present in a lot of instructional material that's written down in instructional books, so you might find that's actually a good resource for you. But YouTube is absolutely awful, and sometimes it just makes me want to take down a lot of the videos that I've put up, because sometimes I get someone come to a private lesson and they've seen the video and I'm like, I should have explained this a lot better, but it would have taken me 40 minutes to explain it a lot better. So now this person's got sort of depressed understanding of the same concept because I had to fit it into a 10-minute window, which doesn't really make it as valuable for the person who's actually trying to learn something. Whereas for the person who just wants to consume content, that's optimal. So this is where it gets really annoying for, someone like me who wants to put things out that actually have some kind of educational benefit, but also has to play the algorithm game with YouTube content. Be aware of all of this when you're trying to learn. And again, my final point on this, which I really want to make, is you become whatever you're working towards and whatever you're spending the most time on. So if you are trying to spend a lot of your time on, for example, recording videos for Instagram, you become great at recording little 1-minute clips of your playing. That's it. You'll be a shit live performer and you'll be a shit educator, and you won't be able to play on other people's tunes. You won't be a good composer, all of these other things. You'll be good at creating content. Now, who on earth wants that? If you want to be good at, let's say, composition, you have to sit down and do composition for a very long period of time. Again, with someone telling you a load of stuff that you might take away and work on. If you want to be a really good live performer, go to all of your local jam nights. This is what, personally, I had to do this quite a lot because of the fact that I basically took a very, very long break from live playing just to work on my own playing and make sure it was all up to scratch before I sort of went back to it. And I didn't have any bands sort of thing to kind of get back into the live playing. I didn't really play any function stuff either. I'm not one of those people who has, 5 different function bands going on. So my best way of doing it was just go to all the local jam nights and just like sit on any song and just hopefully do a decent job of playing whatever it was. If it's improvised, doesn't matter. Just try and come up with stuff that's actually interesting. And that's really helped my live playing, just the exposure. It's not like every time I go out, it's an amazing gig. It's because most of it's all improvised, and sometimes other people mess stuff up and sometimes I mess stuff up. But it's just the confidence of live playing has completely changed because of the fact that I'm trying to do that and trying to become the live player who can execute all of the stuff I've recorded on stage. And that's really important. So again, if you want to do that, you have to go out and do that thing. You have to have a direct approach to, I want to play in this project live, or I want to create my own project and compose all the stuff for it and do this live, etc., etc., if that's what you want. Try and get out of the mentality of I have to be sort of pursuing everything and be a great social media mogul, as well as also playing great live stuff and also, composing 3 albums a year. Guess what? Every single person who does that has like several managers who deal with all of their socials for them. So, it's not a good use of your time. So it's a bit of a rant, this one, I know, but just bear all this in mind if you are looking to get better, because all of my videos will not help you unless you take any of this on board. You need someone to tell you how things are going to work. That's just how it works. Don't try and find a new way of doing it through some technology that's only been around for a few years. Hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next one.